Welkom bij de podcast Breinvoer en Body Talk, waar de focus ligt op het lichaamsbeeld en waar mentale gezondheid geen taboe is. Welcome, Patrick, again in my podcast. Really nice that you wanted to visit. Visit not really, but to be here again in my podcast. For the listeners, Patrick was already here once before in our. It was actually the first podcast that I did together with a guest. And we had quite a lot of positive feedback. And I asked Patrick, like, hey, are you open up to do another one? And he was like, why not? So here we are. Patrick, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me again. I mean, I wasn't sure how it will be received because I'm a rambling man at times, but I'm happy that I can be back and share more about my passion, which is sport and performance psychology.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you again. Maybe, as I said before to you already, maybe we can do just like a quick, short introduction in case people are just listening to this podcast or the first one that they listen to, that they know you just, a bit who you are. Yeah, you don't need to tell your whole life story, but just...
No. When I was really young. No. Yeah, of course. So I'm Patrick Meier, originally born in Germany, so hence the slight accent here and there. 32 years old. I am a sport and performance psychologist, and I work mostly with powerlifters, but also other strength sports, other sports as well. And I help people perform better, feel better, be more resilient in the face of adversity. That's kind of like my jam. That's kind of like my job that I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay, very nice. And the last time we recorded our podcast, we already talked about a lot of topics. And as I said, a lot of people were very positive about it. But they also said, like, we want more.
Yeah.
We want more from this perfect duo.
Wow, okay. Don't flatter me too much. My ego gets too big.
Yeah, my ego is now also getting too big. But yeah, I think let's just dive into it immediately.
Of course.
Because I asked, like, a lot of you, as you know, like I train in a powerlifting and weightlifting gym, and there were a few athletes that also just gave me a bit of feedback. And the first topic actually that they were really interested in it, that we discussed shortly, but that they want to know more about it, was being an athlete versus being an individual. We talked about it shortly, like the importance of it. But they thought, okay, maybe it's nice to dig a bit deeper into it, because why is it so important? They were really curious about your opinion. Like, why is it so important to be on the one side the athlete and on the other side the individual? Because they're actually two different things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To not get too off track, but I will give a little bit of an outline how I understand the whole subject matter, so that people also understand what we mean when we talk about these topics. I always refer to what we call identity or self-concept, which means how we view ourselves and we think others view us in different roles in our lives. And in identity, of course, we have different roles that we're taking on. Like maybe now in this interaction, you're the podcaster, the educator, mentor, whatever the case may be. But once you're done here and you hang up, you maybe turn to your partner and you're like now the fiance, girlfriend, wife, I don't know the status, so whatever it is. And then you turn to your friend and then your friend. So we all have different roles that we're taking on throughout a day. And of course, these roles come with different responsibilities, with different skills that we have, and different characteristics that we display. One thing that I do see a lot with athletes specifically is that for them, their part of the identity that is attached to being an athlete becomes bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Yeah. Because for them, it's being an athlete takes on a really, really important role, because they have a lot of friends, they get a lot of fulfillment out of it. Maybe they get even paid, so it's even their job at one point. Maybe they even met their partner through their sport. So almost everything is consumed by being an athlete. And what we often see is that then that sort of part of us that is an athlete starts overlapping with other factors in our lives and starts to take over too much, so that people cannot turn off the part of being an athlete. They become full-time athlete even when they're not supposed to be one. And that is where I often also with my own clients interfere and say, hey, we need to make sure that that part of us, athlete, is not inflated artificially, so that's not too big for us to handle. And more importantly, actually, that it doesn't overlap with all the other parts of us. So we would call that compartmentalizing our identity, so that there are different compartments for each part of us. So when we step out of the athlete role, we can only be the friend, the fiance, the daughter, the whatever the case may be, so that we are not overlapping them too much. Because if we do that, of course, if one thing goes wrong, your whole world falls apart. If you only the athlete all the time, you make a mistake in your sport, everything just tumbles, and people miss that there are also other things other than the athlete. And that's a really, really risky thing to do, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Is it also like a common thing that you see a lot of athletes do it or experience it like that?
Yes. So the most times I see it is either when people started their sport really, really early, or when they started quite late in life.
Okay.
I don't see it so much with someone who was already like maybe in their teenage years and then they started a sport. I see it a lot with people who were like 4 years old and they would just like put on the soccer field and started kicking a ball. Or someone in their, let's say, mid to late 20s starts picking up a sport. Reason why that happens is because with the really young people, they are raised with that feeling of you are the athlete, and they are also being reinforced in that. So if they're doing something well on the field, it's like, oh my God, he's such a good soccer player. He's so great. And it's being brought up at school with the friend groups, the parents boast about it. So identity is being developed in those early years, and it's all built surrounding the athlete. So that's one of the factors that I see. And then sometimes I see that with the older athletes, the people who have not done any sports growing up and had not the opportunity to compartmentalize, the sport or the athlete from the rest of their identity. And they are lacking an identity. And all of a sudden they find one thing and they go, okay, this is my new thing now. I am now the powerlifter. I am now the strongman. So those are like big moments where I see that people attach too much to their identity as an athlete, for sure.
Yeah. Now that you say it also like that, if I think about it, I think it's quite easy to roll into this kind of athlete lifestyle, or how do I say? I find it hard to explain it in English. More like the line is thin, I think.
Yes.
Like when do you know, like, hey, maybe I have to pay attention to this topic and try to focus also more about being an individual.
Yeah.
Because I think once you are maybe into sports and you like the sports and you want to get better in sports and you're going to adapt your nutrition, you're going to adapt your lifestyle, there's one point that you can say like, hey, it's fine. Like I can do it like this. I like it. It's my passion. But when is or where is then the limit for people to say like, hey, but now it's going too far. Now I have to take a step back and being that individual again.
Yeah. Well, mostly, of course, I would go by if it negatively impacts you or others around you in important areas of your life. Now I sound like I'm reciting the DSM-5, but it's kind of like how we do that as psychologists as well. We look at, is this actually negatively impacting you or anyone around you? If not, no problem. You can be full-time athlete if everything is really nice for you, you enjoy your life, you still keep up good relationships and everybody's happy around you. No problem. Keep doing what you're doing. I think the most problematic part becomes is when, again, we cannot make a distinction between one or the other. When the athlete sort of becomes our identity, that's the only thing we are. And when that becomes very problematic is, once again, let's say you have a training session and it goes really badly. And that training session, it's normal if it's bad, if it's not a good training session, to go, hey, I'm a little disappointed today. But if it goes into, oh, I feel miserable about it and I see myself as this really terrible person, and we don't distinguish between person and athlete anymore, and it impacts us outside of our sport for like not only hours, but days and weeks. And let it be known, I know people who have been impacted by one bad training session for an entire week. That is where we kind of like ring the alarm bells and go like, hey, this is not okay. Because when we compartmentalize, we say, hey, I'm disappointed in this, and I let that emotion happen, and it sits with me for a little bit. But when I'm done with being an athlete, I just put that away and I say, this is where I was disappointed in myself, in my performance as an athlete. So we, put that in that little compartment and leave it there. And then when we're interacting with our partner, we're not hanging on to that. We're not saying, I'm now also a bad partner or I'm a bad person. So we're not internalizing things so much. I think that is a really great way of gauging, hey, where am I at? Am I in a good place with being an athlete, or am I in a not so good space? Because if it impacts you for days and weeks, it definitely is a red flag for me personally.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that is also, of course, a lot to do with self-esteem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you say it like that, I was just thinking, like, by coincidence, I was for 2 days, like 2 days ago, I was going for a trial box class.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
It's super nice, super nice. But I will go to the moral of the story. And it was, the teacher was my father-in-law. And he was telling me afterwards a story about a guy that was also there boxing.
Yeah.
And I said to him, like, it was so obvious actually that this guy was a bit of an outlier in the class. Like, you saw that he was not like doing everything the teacher said, but he was doing more of like his own stuff, because he was already like a bit more like next level, shall I maybe describe it
more
like
advanced.
that? So he already, more advanced is the better word. So he was already a bit deciding like, hey, if it's a bit not too challenging for me, then I will just do a bit like my own stuff. So I asked my father-in-law, like, that was so obvious that this guy was standing out. Why is he like still in this beginner class?
Yeah.
And then he said, he went once for a boxing competition. He lost, and he, after one loss, he immediately thought like, I can't do this. I'm not good at this sports. I failed as a person, and I will quit going further with it. And that was his decision, and that's why he's still in these classes. And that's actually was for me also. Then I also talked about it. It was a perfect example of people that have actually really low self-esteem. If you, after one competition, just decide like, okay, this sports is not made for me, I'm not good at it, I failed as a person, I can't go further with this.
Yeah It's like the first time there's a challenge, or you are being challenged and you don't live up to the challenge, then there's that moment of, oh, shit, I did something wrong, oh no, I'm not good enough, and then immediately retreating and going into these lower level classes to stand out, to be like, I now get my ego stroked a little.
Actually, but if you think about it, then it's quite, because my father-in-law said, what can you do about it? And I said, well, I think you can do a lot about it if you would look into it psychology-wise, because you have to work on your self-esteem, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very common. I think if we can make a few assumptions here, of course, we're not in his head, and I've not spoken the guy, but I think a really interesting part is to see that for some people, when they start developing the athlete identity, and in his case, he is like in the very beginning stages, and when you start competing, that's when it starts solidifying a little bit more, because you're now a competitive athlete. So it's no longer like a little hobby that you do, but it's starting to become a little bit more serious. There's that moment of, like you said, where your skill level maybe is not high enough for the task demands, so to say. So the competition is a little bit more fierce and a little bit more difficult than you can handle. And then once that happens, we're challenged in that athlete identity, and we either have to say, oh, hold on, why was that? Why was I not able to live up to the challenge? Or we just kind of like ball up and retreat and go back, and we say, okay, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with the challenge.
Yeah.
And if you have a very shaky self-esteem or self-image, which is also like very tightly connected to the identity and self-concept, then this challenge will likely push you into thinking, hey, I made a mistake. I'm not good enough. I will never be a good enough fighter. I will never be able to exceed this level. And you just kind of internalize and take it like very, very close to your heart, rather than seeing it as, oh, I was not prepared enough. I was not able to display my full strength, maybe because I was a little nervous. So already when we look at this, when we interpret situations that happens around us, that always matters how it reflects on our self-esteem, self-image, identity, self-concept. They're all connected with each other. And in this case, maybe he already had quite a shaky self-image, self-esteem to begin with. Problem is, most of the time in the beginning, you get your ego stroked a lot because you get better really fast at any skill. And then when you get into that intermediate stage, that is when it becomes tough and you're challenged more. And that is when building that solid foundation of having a good self-concept and self-image outside of being an athlete becomes more and more important, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if you have an answer on this question, but is it so that people that maybe already have lower self-esteem and go into sports, that they also struggle more with the problem, like being an athlete versus being an individual? Do you think that there's a link? Yeah, I'm now maybe asking questions that you don't have the answer for it. I'm just wondering if that can be a case, if you have a lower self-esteem, that you're maybe already more vulnerable to lose yourself in being that athlete and maybe thinking that you're only the athlete. Instead of also pay attention to being an individual.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a pretty low self-esteem, most people try to build their self-esteem by feeling competent.
Yeah.
And a great way to feel competent is to be successful in something, make a lot of money, be very athletic, or look a certain way. There's no secret that most of the like big social media, Instagram influencer, fitness people, most of them look perfect, but have like an insane self-image issues. And most of the time it's driven by the fact of, hey, I have low self-esteem. I'm doing that thing that makes me feel competent. And hey, look, I can also benefit from it or profit from it by being liked by others and get confirmation from the outside. And therefore, that makes them also drive themselves towards wanting to perform on a certain level. So I think there is a connection. I cannot confirm it by any research or something. But I also sometimes find it is a little bit of a, how would I say, chicken and egg kind of situation. What was there first? Yeah. If somebody does a sport really, really early on, it could also be that their self-esteem was like teared down through their coaches and through their family. And then they want to prove themselves, and then they become like a high-level athlete, or their self-esteem was low to begin with, and then they pick the sport to build themselves up. We don't know. There's certain sports that definitely lend themselves to the theory of getting your self-esteem broken down by coaches and parents. Like think gymnastics, dance, figure skating, everywhere where you're supposed to, quote unquote, look a certain way and not be too heavy in quotations. Those are definitely sports where your self-esteem is teared down so that you have to fill it in with accomplishments. It's almost like the strategy of coaches in the old school. Nowadays, it hopefully is a little bit different.
Hopefully, yeah. What can you, or what would you say? What can you do about it if you feel like you're a bit more stuck into this topic, like maybe low self-esteem, or maybe like, okay, I feel that I'm living more this athlete lifestyle, but if if I make a mistake or whatever, that you immediately address it to your individual personality or whatever.
Yeah.
What can you do about this? How can you prevent it? How can you? Yeah, it's a very broad question, but
No, my brain is already.
I think.
My brain is already busy creating a full work plan for a person like that. Okay, first step, we're looking at the identity and we're trying to
Take the whiteboard.
yeah, exactly. No, I think the most foundational thing is if you attach your identity so much to being an athlete, there must be something missing in terms of self inside of who you are outside of being an athlete. So probably there's some self inside missing that can be tackled by spending some time exploring yourself, but also by asking others like, hey, let's maybe like take you as an example. If you were to struggle right now, I would sit you down and would be like, who are you as a partner? Like what is a characteristic that makes you special for your partner? And let's say you were in a different space right now, you would be like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'm nice. Whereas if I would to ask you that question now, seriously, you would be like, oh, this, and this. You would be able to name it. But a person who has a little bit more of a shaky self image or self concept wouldn't be able to name any of this. They would be like, I guess I'm kind of nice as a partner, but I don't know. So you hear a lot of I don't know in those stages. So I think that is the first part where we look into, hey, these other roles that you're taking on as a partner, as a friend, as a sibling, whatever the case may be. Just take some time and ask people around you like, hey, what are some characteristics that you value about me? So that you can build a little bit of a, almost like on a whiteboard, you write it all down and you have like these sticky notes and you add every time a sticky note when somebody says something or you have an experience or whatnot. And you go like, oh yeah, in this relationship, I was very helpful. I'm helpful. Okay, cool. And you're just starting to put together the pieces in every part of your identity where you know, hey, if I fail this squat, let's say, in my training, I can still go home and I know that I'm a helpful, that I am a supportive, that I am a loving and caring and funny partner. Okay, well, that's important right now. So you make other parts of your self-concept more salient and you develop them a little bit more in terms of this is positive about me, this is a good characteristic that I have. That is the first part. Second part would be trying to unravel a whole bunch of beliefs that a person probably has for years and maybe even decades that are related to, hey, I am only worthy if I perform. That would be a really common one. Most people who struggle with their self-image and their self-esteem and attach too much to their athlete identity tend to think I am worthless unless, and then that unless ... we fill in what that ... is. Unless I perform, unless I win, unless I do well, unless, and then we start filling in those dots and trying to unravel those. That's something that's very difficult to do as a person by themselves. That's something you probably more do with a therapist. But I think those are two really big ingredients that would be used. And the third one would be to learn how to interpret failure and success the proper way. I don't know if we talked about that last time. Attribution theory, anything along
I
those
don't think
lines?
so.
Okay.
No.
If it's a repeat, then just everybody who's taking the notes, they can just revise. Exactly. But there's something called attribution theory. And in attribution theory, we look into how we interpret success and failure. And you have these dimensions of internal, external, controllable, uncontrollable, and stable and unstable. And if you're somebody who has a pretty bad self-esteem, you tend to internalize failure. So say, this is about me, this is something I did. It's mostly uncontrollable in a way because it's like, well, it just happens to be because I am useless. I am miserable just at my core. So it's not something that you can control. And it's something that's stable, that will remain like that. I am just worthless, therefore, and I will always be worthless, therefore I failed. Whereas we would help somebody interpret the failure more in terms of, hey, are there external factors that contributed to the failure? Are there some things that you actually were able to control that we could maybe like double down on next time? And to what degree can we make change in terms of, is it stable, unstable? Is it something that will maintain or something that can change? And already that pivot can help a lot of people to look at failure and say, hold on, the circumstances were not the best, therefore I failed, but I also had some responsibility here. So we're splitting it up so that we're not internalizing things we're not supposed to internalize. So that would be a big ingredient of helping somebody with this issue as well, to teach them how to attribute success and failure in a more healthy way.
Yeah. And I think if you talk about this attribution, I think for a lot of people, it's easier to attribute internally, right? Because you have that information, you have more like control over it. And if you will say like, okay, there were some external factors that actually had some impact, then there are actually factors that you maybe don't have the control over it. And it's more difficult for people probably to accept or to realize like, hey, but these are some factors that I can't do anything about it. Or maybe you can do something about it, but like it's tougher, it's more difficult. So it's more like a human thing, I think, to
for sure
do it internally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The funny thing is, though, if you see somebody with a very heavy internalizing attribution style for failure, if you switch it around and you look how they interpret success, all of a sudden everything tips on its head. They succeed at a competition, they go like, well, the judges were nice. I actually didn't hit depth all that well anyway, but they were just nice and gave me it. Oh, well, this athlete, the reason why I pulled ahead and won against them is because they were not in the best shape on that day. So they externalize every little thing when it comes to success. And that is the crazy thing, is that we then end up like with basically a double taking away from your own accomplishments. Like, you blame yourself for all the failure, take responsibility to 1000%.
Yeah.
Then when you succeed, you're like, nope, has nothing to do with me. So I think we would also look into that way of attributing success and failure. But indeed, like you said, when somebody fails, they want to take all the responsibility, because in the last years, it became very sexy to also say like, take responsibility for everything, take ownership of 100%. And I'm like, you shouldn't. No. Sorry, like if you, the night before a big competition, if there was a dog barking outside of your house and you were up for like 3 extra hours, so you only got like 4 hours of sleep, obviously that will impact your performance. And maybe you then come to the competition hall and you're a little bit heavier because you pulled more water because there was more stress. And all of a sudden you have to spend the next, 30 minutes to an hour sweating in the sauna or spitting the remaining water weight out, and then you weigh in later and you cannot refeed as well. That has an impact. So in that case, there was no amount of preparation that you could have done to prevent that or make that better. And people have to just be honest about that. That is not in your control. That is not what you're responsible for. And then separate that very, very neatly. This was very powerlifting coded now, of course, when it comes to the examples, but you can transfer that over to any sport for sure.
Yeah, it's also very recognizable, because I'm always wondering, like, why is it so difficult sometimes for people just to maybe be a bit more kind to themselves and just accept and say like, hey, there were some external factors that had an impact and that I couldn't do anything about it. And that's why my competition or whatever felt maybe a bit off or didn't go as planned. Like, as you say, it's always these days more about, you have to lock in. You have to lock in no matter the external factors. You have to lock in, and it's you versus you. Oh, I hate it. Sorry, I'm just now going. losing myself. But why is it so hard for people just to sometimes just say like, hey, as you say, like, okay, that dog was barking. I slept for hours and it had an impact on my performance. Sadly, but it is. Why is it so difficult for people?
Oof. Yeah, that's actually a more complex
self-compassion thing, right? Why is it so difficult?
Yeah, it is, because I do think there's this really weird thing, especially in our generation. So I'm talking more like the millennials, Gen Z kind of people, right?
Yeah.
Like I cannot speak too much to the older generation. But let's say anybody who is in their teenage years all the way up to their 40s. We were raised with that idea simultaneously with two ideas. One is you have to just put your head down and work hard. And if you work hard, you get anything that you want. And on the other hand, we're told that we're like so lazy and entitled and we're the worst generation that has ever existed. So culturally already we were set up in this way where it was like, okay, shut up, head down, don't complain, don't say anything because I don't want to be one of those entitled millennials or one of those spoiled Gen Z kids, you know?
Yeah.
And I think culturally that already has a big, big impact where we almost think like, no, I'm not allowed to be compassionate with myself because if I'm compassionate with myself, that's too soft and I cannot be soft because then I'm one of those millennials. I'm one of those Gen Z kids. So I think culturally it has been beaten into us, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, mostly figuratively because that changed over the years, of course, over the generations.
Yeah.
Luckily, very luckily. So that is a big, big part. And I do think as soon as you enter this, let's say, subculture of athletes, and then you enter that subculture also of strength athletes, there's this feeling of like you have to be hardcore. You have to be the one who takes full ownership and responsibility.
Yeah.
So there's no self-compassion allowed almost. It's not encouraged. Whereas now I see the shift happening more and more and more where people are at least very compassionate with each other.
Yeah.
But I feel there's almost like this admittance of I'm weak or I'm fragile if I admit that there's something that is going on that I had no control over. And it's scary to say I have no control over this, that, and the other thing, obviously. But it's funny because the amount of stuff we don't have control over is wild. Like one of the reasons why I was able to get a bachelor's and a master's and then also start my own business is because I come from a family where my parents are smart.
Yeah.
They're middle class. I went to a good, decent school. I almost said good. It was a decent school. And that allowed me to then go on to study also in another country.
Yeah.
They paid for some of my studies. So I was very, very blessed. Somebody else who was not able to get a bachelor's or master's and start their own business and be somewhat successful with it, that could be because they were not from a middle-class family. Their parents were not that intelligent. They were not able to go to a different country to study. So many things are outside of our control, and some people have the privilege, some don't. And I think we all have to acknowledge where we're at that part and have compassion for ourselves when we fall short, and also acknowledge where we didn't have the control. And I think that's very important nowadays.
Yeah, very important. And you said it's scary, but the thing that I immediately thought, like maybe in the beginning it's scary, but once you just admit it or just like accept it, it's actually way less scary because it's actually quite relieving, I would say.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say I am historically somebody who's extremely critical with himself and also internalizing a lot in the past. And I've been practicing with the self-compassion approach, which doesn't come naturally to me, unfortunately. But yeah, it's very relieving once you're like, okay, this was not fully my fault.
Yeah.
I had some contribution to this, but I didn't fully mess it up. So it's fine.
Yeah.
It makes things a little bit lighter and makes it that we can engage in activities more from a place of, I want to do this and I'm led by some sort of value that is behind what I'm doing rather than I have to make up for something. I have to be good. I have to take responsibility for everything. There's not such a forceful feeling behind what we're doing. Because I don't know, everybody who had maybe at one point a really bad relationship to their sport, let's say, can attest that sometimes you would go into the gym and you're like, okay, no bitching around today. We're just gonna get it. We're gonna lock in. Let's do this. Don't be all these kind of expertise that we can throw around. And then you're like, okay, maybe I achieved something, but this was miserable. I hated this. And then when the relationship becomes better and you walk into the gym, you go, today I want to do something great and I want to lift some heavy weights and it's going to be so fun. My best friends are here and everybody's cheering me on. They want me to succeed. It's such a different atmosphere. And guess what? Both of these people will roughly make the same progress probably, but one of them feels a lot better about themselves. So yeah, it's very, very relieving for sure.
Yeah. So they will maybe make the same progress then physically, but mentally the other one I think is also just winning, to be honest.
Yeah. Also, I do want to say that when we're reinforcing the more like strict and the more, how to say, taking responsibility of everything and holding on to control, not only is it mentally not that healthy, you can see very easily how that leads down to somebody getting injured more easily, somebody going into burnout more easily. All that can happen more easily because we're in that zone of overcompensating, in that zone of taking too much on our plates, having too much anxiety leading our behavior. So that's also a second part that obviously becomes better. The one who does their sport out of value and out of the feeling of this is fun to do, and I'm really good at separating, my athlete identity, like everything we talked about. If you're able to do that, you're way less likely to burn out, way less likely to get injured, way less likely to stop the sport at one point because if it's fun, you keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's good that you now talked about, you said you have a bigger risk to burn out, to have injuries.
Yeah.
There was also a topic that was also written down, or at least asked that we would maybe dig a bit deeper into it, because I'm making now the completely switch, but we're already talking about quite long about the other topic, so I think it's
totally fine.
We talked shortly about, or there was shortly mentioned in the previous podcast, the link between injury and burnout. I don't know if you remember that conversation.
I don't remember anything I said last time, so
good memory.
Hey, don't ask me what I said when I was in my psychologist role. I have no idea.
Okay, but that doesn't matter. It's fine. At least we talked shortly about the risk if you have, for example, more injuries as an athlete. Like, how big is then the risk maybe to create a burnout, but more than specifically a burnout in sports, but maybe also a burnout in daily life, or maybe the other way around. If you have more stress, you are burned out, I think the risk is also higher for injuries and everything. Like, how common is this, or what is your opinion about this? Like, how high is the risk actually to, let's say, first to go into burnout if you have, for example, multiple injuries in a row, or longer injuries? Do you know the do you understand the question?
Yeah.
I have the feeling I'm a bit going all over the place.
That's okay. Part of my job is to make sense of a whole lot of talk. No, it made sense.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I structure this the best way? Burnout and injury is so insanely similar to each other that one occurring and then the other occurring, or one causing the other, is super, super, super likely. And the other part is a person who has a tendency to stay injured for a long time, based on the psychological factors, not so much the physical factors, is also way more likely to run into burnout, and the other way around. Because what we usually see is that the same pattern sort of emerges most of the time. And that is that there are certain beliefs surrounding performance, surrounding our own bodies, and surrounding certain exercises emerge. And when we have certain beliefs that are more negative or more unhelpful, we usually call them unhelpful, not negative, they oftentimes lead or activate certain emotions. And those emotions are usually also more the negatively seen emotions. And those emotions then create certain behaviors. And in this case, most of the time, compensatory behaviors. So if you are someone who is constantly injured and stays injured because you keep overcompensating, so like overshooting your RPEs, working too much, going over your pain thresholds, not taking your recovery protocol seriously, or doing too much of it. When your physio tells you, hey, do these exercises twice a day, and you go, well, if I do them 6 times, I'm going to recover 3 times as fast, right? So you're doing like the quick math as a overcompensator. And then once again, you're in the same cycle of doing too much. And that overcompensating behavior is paralleled also in somebody who's more prone to burnout. Somebody who does too much of something out of an emotion that is a negative emotion. So for instance, shame or guilt or fear or anger, they tend to also run into burnout really quickly, because for them it's that cycle of I have to compensate for something, I have to make up for something, and really tense feelings that are surrounding that. So somebody who gets injured quite often also gets probably burned out at one point, and somebody who gets burned out more often tends to get injured long term also more often. On both ends, the big issue is that we're basically, the reason why we stay burned out or we get burned out or we stay injured for such a long time is also because we are spending too much energy for too little in return. And it has a lot to do with how much we value an activity and how much our values driving the behavior that we're doing. So in burnout, we often see that somebody would do too much in their sport and then neglect all of the other things surrounding it. So they neglect their social life, they neglect their relationships in general, they neglect their development in their career or spending time in nature, self-care. They're neglecting all of these things for the sake of improving on another level. And there's energy expenditure over and over and over with low amount of return. So over time, your body says, hey, you're spending more energy that we can make, stop it, and it shuts you down. Similar thing when somebody gets injured all the freaking time and stays injured is because they go in with that's like, I have to here now still perform. I still have to do this, and this. And then the energy expenditure is quite high, but the pain is going to be high as well. The energy that they're getting back is going to be pretty damn low. So your body is also like, hold on, stop, and shuts you down as well. So they're extremely parallel to each other. That is my not so short explanation.
No, like it's for me, at least, a very interesting topic and very clear how you explained it. The first thing that just popped up in my head is that I think a lot of people, I'm always saying a lot of people, I don't know, who am I, but the information that I get, I think a lot of people don't even really realize the impact it has, like on their body or on their nervous system. I think it's more their belief that if I would go all in and I would do, as you say, like maybe double the work, and they think that's progressing, right? Because it helps me because I do extra effort.
Yeah.
But they don't understand or realize the impact on the nervous system, that you at one point your body will just say like, yo, I can't bear this anymore. It's just done. I quit. I give up.
Yeah.
Do you see that often with athletes, that people don't realize it? Don't get it?
Yeah. It's thinking you can outwork your body, your body's natural defenses is super common. At least, of course, I'm a little bit biased because I get a certain demographic that works with me. And one of the demographic is the constantly injured, burnt out athletes that comes to me. But I do see that where the work they put in, not only is it too much for their system to handle, but also the work they put in comes from a place of anxious feelings of, I have to get ahead. I cannot slide backwards in my progression. Other people would take me over. And even if they were just to change the emotion that drives the behavior, even that could change how much their body can handle. To kind of like explain, like, let's say you have 2 athletes. One of them shows their behavior of like overworking, doing quite a bit, overshooting their RPs, whatnot. And they do it from a point of, oh my God, I have to do this because otherwise the competition will pull ahead. Oh my God, I have to do this because otherwise I will make not enough progression. And they're like really tense and anxious in their behavior versus the athlete that does the exact same thing, has the same amount of overshoots, the same amount of overwork, the same amount of everything. Their behavior is completely identical, but their motivation is, I'm doing this because I'm so excited to make progress, to make headway. I'm really excited to do my sport. I really love the sport. And they're doing it from a level of a positive emotion that's driving them and values that are behind it. Their ability to handle this quote unquote overworking is going to be a lot better because the strain on the nervous system is a different one because there's no tension and anxious feelings around it. It's still not the best kind of behavior, but already when we switch the emotional, I guess balance is the best word for it. If not, nobody will know anyway. If so, what I do a lot, I use big words and hope that nobody points it out.
Now someone will write it down. Oh, this is wrong. I will write it down.
But if the emotional quality is a little bit different, already your ability to handle the work is gonna increase, so your baseline goes up. And then, of course, what we would address is to no longer overcompensate. But most of the time when we change the emotional quality, we have to change the beliefs surrounding it. And therefore, that will be resolved in the first place. So that's how I usually approach it with a lot of my athletes who tend to overwork and do too much, because then that got to be logged in, hustle and grind culture and whatnot. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's always about the motivation why someone is doing something, right?
Yeah. It's really funny because I don't know if you have that a lot as well, but where people ask you, hey, what are the red flags in X? Like, what are some red flags for body image? And you go, it's a hard thing to answer because I could say somebody looks at themselves in a mirror very frequently. And it's like, but that doesn't really matter unless they have a emotional reaction to it. They judge themselves. And even if they judge themselves, are they correcting themselves afterwards really quickly or not? So giving these like only behavioral red flags are so difficult for me to do as well. I don't know how you experience it.
No, for sure. It's always, it's not like black or white, like as you say, if people, oh, I said it was a bit stuck. Oh, yeah. It's, I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's not always like black or white, as you say. For example, like if people say to me, like, I look 10 times a day in the mirror. That's not really a lot of information for me. Like, why do you look into that mirror?
Yeah.
Do you look into that mirror because you like to look at yourself, because you like how you look? Well, that's very positive, you know? I like it for you. But if you look into the mirror every time just to judge yourself, to see what is wrong again, to see how ugly you are, to see, I don't know, all your insecurities, to confirm that constantly, then we're talking about a red flag, of course. But it's so much more complicated than, as you say, than just one behavior and just say like, oh yeah, this behavior is wrong.
Yeah. That's why it's so funny, because I have been working, of course, also with coaches on identifying certain red flags. And then sometimes they show me something like, oh, what do you think about this? And or they tell me about like a case and like, what do you think about that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not enough information. And also maybe people now that are listening to the podcast are like, oh, I have some of these behaviors. Oh, maybe I'm somebody who's prone to being long-term injured or someone who's like prone to burnout. One thing I always want to make sure is that a behavior in isolation is not a good indicator for whether somebody shows a healthy quote unquote behavior or an unhealthy quote unquote behavior. It's more important to look at the motivation behind it and looking at, is it driven by beliefs that are helpful, unhelpful? Are they driven by emotions that are more tense, like shame and fear and anger? Or are they driven by positive emotion, like excitement or some sort of value that is standing behind the behavior? So please don't freak out if you identify yourself with certain things that I said. Always question what is the motivation behind it rather than looking just at behavior in isolation. Yeah.
It's also funny. It sounds maybe a bit arrogant, but if we talk about this topic, then I think, I don't know how is it with you, but I'm so used to always, all doesn't matter if it's also just in my private life. I'm so used to ask people more. Like if they tell me like, yeah, for example, I'm just saying something, a friend in a gym, and she or he says like, yeah, I do, I just want to, I have an injury, but I just want to, I really want to move because it makes me feel better or whatever.
Yeah.
Then I automatically also just ask the question like, okay, but why do you want to move? Does it make you feel better? Is it out of a positive motivation, or are you scared to not move? Are you scared the consequences are? So that it's, uh, if you think about it, it's maybe not so usual to do that,
No.
but I don't know. I'm so used to do it, so I'm a bit maybe biased in it, or
Yeah.
I think it's more. It's really. I'm just really now. Go to the points on it. I'm just. I think like it's actually more important if people in general would do this more often with their environment, with their friends, with their family, just to check in. Like, hey, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
But
It
it's not so common.
No, it's not. And it's things are taken at face value. Somebody says like, "Oh, I was hurt, but I'm back in the gym, ready to make some progress." And everybody's like, "Yay, good job, good job!"
Yeah,
Like a little bit of applause
yeah.
around. Because on the surface, it of course it sounds really badass to be like, "I was in pain, but I was able to push through." You're like, "Whoa, badass!" Like from one perspective, but then you have to switch and you go like, "But hold on, is this actually a really helpful or good thing for that person? Like, why are they doing this?" And I think that's questioning doesn't always happen internally within the person that is stuck in their behavior, but it has to be provoked through the environment, which makes it, of course, harder because people who are a certain way in terms of how they think, what they believe, how they act, they choose an environment that is also pretty similar to that. That's why you have, I'm not going to say any names, but that's why you have coaching teams where many, many, many people have the same injuries, are running into burnout pretty quickly, and have the same way of like hyping themselves up. That's very unhelpful because the environment dictates what is quote unquote normal and reinforces it. But for us, it's like okay, you're in the gym now and you're in pain. Why are you here? Like, why would you go through the pain? Explain me, what is the purpose here?
Yeah,
And if they say like,
exactly.
yeah, I'm not a quitter. It's like, that's not a good motivation. It's like, why are you here? Oh, it makes me feel good. What about it makes you feel good? Oh, is it a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? How are you adapting your training to make it that it feels good, but still stays within the pain thresholds that are determined for you? Like, there's so many questions that I would have, that I would be provoked into asking.
Yeah,
But not everybody does that now.
no. And also, as you say, like if it's in a team, I think a lot of people maybe also show up because they feel responsible to their team members.
Yeah.
They maybe think like, hey, I have this injury, I have this pain. But for example, I'm now thinking about weightlifting. Like in my gym, we have also the weightlifting. So since then, I know a bit something about it, not a lot. I'm still not good at it, like to understand it. But I just know that, for example, in a competition, uh, the lifts you do alone, but the points you get is like with a team
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
very often.
yeah.
So a lot of people, they probably also feel responsible for the team members, that they maybe feel like, hey, I have a bit of a pain or an injury. Maybe it's not really a good idea to go now for the training, but we have the competition in a few weeks, and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
team is counting on me.
yeah.
Like the responsibility to other team members, I think it's also sometimes difficult to cope with, no?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you remember, but some years ago, there was this huge story about Simone Biles. Do you know who that
Yeah.
is? The
Yeah, I checked
gymnast?
the whole documentary on
Yeah.
Netflix.
So for those who are listening who don't know who it is, Simone Biles, probably one of the best gymnasts in the
Yeah.
history. Like,
Insane. Yeah.
yeah, no joke. If you look up how what kind of
Yeah.
routines she does, it's
Not
mind
human.
blowing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, really crazy. But one year, I think it was during the Olympics, she actually did say, "Hey, I will not compete." And that was it happening, I think, a couple of days before or like a week before or something. And she said, the reason why I don't compete is because I don't feel like I'm able or capable to do it. And I
Yeah.
would not do my team members a favor. Somebody else has to step in and take my place. And the response was so incredibly negative in the press. They said, oh, she's a quitter. She gives up on her team. She lets her team down. And the narrative that is publicly out there already culturally and also in the media landscape is exactly what you said. I have to perform because otherwise I let my team down. I am going to be a disappointment to them. I'm going to be a burden to them if I don't do this. And again, those are these pressures that hit on athletes. But I feel, I'm not sure, but I have the feeling that she worked with some sort of psychologist to make that decision as well, because that is such a, how to say, that's such a mature decision, not only for a person, but for an athlete to make. And remember, gymnasts are young, really young. They're done with their sport when they hit their mid-20s most of the time. So she was really young at that point. For her to make that decision against all the pressure that she knows would have been there is really incredible. So I think there's something to be learned from that, to be like, hey, I don't necessarily let my teammates down. I know what I can deliver when I feel healthy. If I don't feel healthy, I should not force myself into delivering something, because it's more important that I have a career, athletic career that's has longevity, that I can do for a long time, and that I stay true to myself instead of trying to force myself into adhering to the external pressures that they might have. Because I can guarantee you, Simone Biles behind the scenes, all of her teammates were like, perfectly fine, no problem. Take your time. Don't overdo it. Don't push yourself. This is not worth it. Whereas the whole world was exploding with, she's a coward, she's a traitor, like really the most vile things you can think about. I think this is a good example to look towards what a healthy relationship with your sport and performance could look like, to be honest.
It's a completely other level of strength, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you are just able, or you decide to push this decision through and know that this is the best for your mental health.
Yeah.
I think then you are a strong person.
Absolutely. And I do think she came back at the next competition and absolutely obliterated everything. So she's still the same athlete, but this could have been one of those moments where she pushes herself through and does it, gets injured or gets really discouraged or gets overwhelmed and starts developing this fright of her own sport and doesn't want to do it anymore, or feels scared to step on the platform and do her sport. So it's way more, and it is tempting to just do that because it's the Olympics. I mean,
yeah, of course.
I can't even imagine how it would be to compete at the Olympics. I mean, I've never even competed at nationals, so I don't have the reference point. But having that strength to say, nope, I can't do it right now. This is not the right time, and then come back and give a performance that is so good. It's very mind blowing. So these are the examples that I put people towards as well. Like, look at those athletes. Don't look at the athlete who's like, I was feeling injured and burned out and I still did it. I'm like, that was dumb. Don't do that. Be more like Simone Biles. She is a definitely better role model functionary.
And of course, I can't look into her head, but probably she still felt maybe a bit of guilt, or there were still some negative emotions with it. But I think that's also okay. That is also part of it. Like, I talked about with a guy in the gym, and he came also with the topic like, okay, but if you are competing in a team and you have, for example, the last lift and you fail that lift, and because of that, your team loses.
Yeah.
He said, like, for me, it's fine. Like, it's not that he thinks, oh, now I'm a bad athlete or I'm a bad person, but it's more the feeling that even though you know it can happen, you still have the feeling of disappointing your team. But I think that's also a normal reaction, right? To have that feeling in the first place.
Yeah, it's allowed to be there. There's no rule to what is allowed to be there in terms of the emotions. And again, it's fine to be like, hey, I'm disappointed that I was not able to display my full strength, or that I was able to clutch out the win for my team. And that is totally normal. That is totally fine. Where it becomes often an issue is when it just starts to fester and it becomes like a deeper seated shame. And that shame then influences all your decision making and your behavior and how you see yourself. That becomes problematic. But the emotion itself, no problem at all. Even though I find it always interesting when people do that, when they're like happen to be at the last spot and they're not able to squeeze out the win. And then they're like, that's me, I'm responsible. Maybe as an example would be the classic, if I would now know how to exactly call the sport, I don't have the name of the sport, but you know, when you run with a little pole in your hand and then you hand it off to the next person and then they take it and then they hand it to the next person. And
I don't know how it's in Dutch, it's estafette.
I guess, yeah. If we find out the English word, that's...
I was like expecting now that you would say, yeah, estafette, but no, it's so Dutch.
No, it's super Dutch. But there's a word in German, it's called Staffellaufen. So if somebody who is it sounds like something to eat, like a really delicious dessert.
Yeah.
So if somebody's German listening to it or Dutch, they understand it. They're English speakers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Look it up, Google. Google exists. Google is free.
Exactly. But in that sport, of course, there's a first person who runs, passes it off, the second person passes off, and then the third person runs. Oftentimes, the third person that doesn't get the win is taking more responsibility, like, oh, I didn't get it, I didn't do it. Even though there were two people before you that also contributed to a slower time that then made it that you have to make up for time. So maybe it's the same there with like, I get to do the last lift for my team and I didn't get to do the win. It's like, but did everybody else get the last few kilograms out of themselves so that the team could win? No. So it's still a team effort. So I think that oftentimes what helps as well to be like, hey, but I'm part of the team. I'm part of this.
Yeah.
I'm not a separate entity. So if I fail a lift, I fail the lift as part of this team, not as me and the team is now suffering. That happens a lot, that they start separating themselves as I'm this individual and the team is here and I let them down. Where it's like, no, you're in the team. You're still part of this and you're doing it as a team effort. So it's not a responsibility of one person, but it's a shared responsibility because it's also a shared competition and a shared win or loss at the end of the day. So
it's a very logic answer if you say it like that, because I wanted to actually ask you, look, how do you cope with this if you have this guilt or this responsibility feeling? But as you say, like, that's actually already the answer. If you just try to realize, like, hey, but this last lift is not per se my responsibility. It's like as a team that you have the responsibility to win. And if that last lift, indeed, as you said, is, how do you say it in English? The one that will do it. I can't find the typical word in English. Then maybe there also went something wrong, like already before in the team.
Yeah.
But I think or I also never thought about it maybe like that. Like, that during the competition, other athletes could also maybe lift heavier, so they wouldn't have that last deciding lift. You know?
Yeah, and also the other part is as well. Like, let's say the reason why you missed the lift is because you got a little too anxious, a little bit too much in your head.
Pressure.
Hey, you as a team are responsible to help each other stay calm and grounded and be able to focus. So again, we always bring it back to where can the team improve versus where can the individual improve? Because if it's just individuals improving themselves and then they come together and then they compete together, that's not a team. that's just a bunch of people doing a sport together. Like there's a difference between what we call, like, it's a group, but not a team. There's a certain quality that a team has, and in a team, there are dynamics at play. People are there's some sort of like athletic investment, but there's also personal investment of we're interacting with each other because we're the team, and I'm responsible to help you stay on track, be focused, be in a good mood, be in a good mind state to be able to do the lift. And if you fail, I'm there to catch you and help you and make sure that you don't feel so down on yourself. So everybody has responsibility beyond themselves. Otherwise, it's not a team. Otherwise, it's just a group of people doing a sport together.
Yeah.
And I know this sounds like semantics because it sort of is, but it gives you a little bit of a different feeling for what we talk about when we say team. Because it's such a difference when you start seeing a team that way, not as a group of individuals, but as an entity of its own. And I think that's a really, really important one. Also, besides that, anyone who has ever, like, quote unquote, let their team down, almost nobody asks the team how they feel about it. They always go, like, in their own mind, they have the story of, I let them down. Oh my God, they're so disappointed in me. It's like, just ask them, like, how do you feel about that I missed that lift? They're like, oh, yeah, too bad that you did, but you're still a good person. We still like you as a team member. It's all good. So, like, already making that step, reconnecting with the team instead of seeing yourself separate is super, super helpful in that regard.
Yeah, and I think then also if you then ask and people say like, hey, yo, it's fine, like we are not mad at you, like, and you still feel guilty or like really bad about yourself, then I think we come again at that point of self-esteem, I think, of low self-esteem.
Yeah.
That you then, if you realize then like, okay, but if I ask, if I try to think about it differently, but it doesn't work for me, like I'm still in that negative spiral, I think then it's also a wake-up call for you to maybe work on your self-esteem.
Yeah. Because if even like opposing evidence doesn't really shake you enough to be like, oh yeah, right, but you get stuck in it like a lot, then that would be an indicator of maybe there's something going on with the self-esteem to work on as well. I think in general, this whole like team component is really fascinating because I mostly work with people that do individual sports. So I don't have as much experience with team dynamics, but I do find this is a really interesting topic to think more about. And just now my brain is just kind of like going different places with that.
It is interesting because I think, as I said before, there will always be maybe that, or these kind of emotions of thoughts like, okay, even though I know it's not my fault, or even though I know it's the responsibility of the whole team, I still feel a bit disappointed that I didn't make the end lift or whatever. But I think that's also, people are then maybe looking for a solution for that. But I think it's just accepting that at that point or that moment that it's okay to also have a bit of these feelings and to say like, okay, yeah, I feel disappointed, I feel not so happy, and that's okay, it will fade away, you know. In a few days it will be gone.
I do think that is also culturally, again, a really big problem we have though. It's when you see somebody really disappointed about something, the first thing people do is like, no, but actually, and they try to like jump in and make them feel better, and it's like, no, it's fine that I feel disappointed in myself. That's totally okay. Like, I have the same thing. Like 2 days ago, I was with some coaches, and I was like teaching them a few things about beliefs, performance, and whatnot. And at one point, I was exclaiming to them, I'm like, yeah, well, I may not be the best psychologist because I'm not. Obviously, I'm not. I'm pretty good at what I do, but I'm not the best. I'm like, I'm not even the best in my own house. I have a psychologist who lives with me because she's my fiance, who is better than me as a psychologist. And everybody jumped towards me and went like, no, but you're really great. You're really good. I'm like, no, it's fine. I know I'm really good, but I can admit that she's better, and that's fine. And I can be also feeling a little bit like disappointed when I did something not so well with a client. And then she tells me like, oh, you could have done this. And I'm like, oh man, right, okay. And I feel disappointed, but I don't need her to go, no, but you're still a great psychologist. She can just go and say, hey, I understand that you're disappointed that you didn't get to that solution yourself. And we just sit with it. And after a while, I'm like, okay, now the emotion is gone and it's just faded. But yeah, people don't like sitting with difficult emotions. And even more so, other people don't like seeing others sit with difficult emotions.
Yeah.
Which is mind blowing. Like we in our jobs, we do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
We have somebody in front of us sobbing uncontrollably, and we're like, "This is fine. This is okay."
Let it
Others
out.
like, panic! I have to change something. They cannot cry. Oh my god, no, no, no!
Yeah.
And that is also quality to develop, not only for yourself to sit with your own emotions, but also with other people's emotions, and be fine with them because they're all okay and equally valid. To be honest.
Yeah. I also tell always my clients, like, instead of the whole time avoiding your emotions and try to look to do something or to not feel them, that resistance makes it 10 times worse
Yes.
than just to confront your anxiety and try to feel once the emotion. Try to feel once disappointment or sadness, and then I just give it like literally as a homework subject. Like, just try it and let me know after you did it if you're still alive or not, because I bet you are. Okay, it will be sorry. It will be a few hours that you feel really bad, but I always there was an old colleague for me, and she told me, or also in the hospital, she always said to clients, a bad day also takes 24 hours. A good day takes 24 hours, but a bad day, it takes also 24 hours. So if you feel bad, then feel bad for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because the next day you can see again how you feel. It will end.
Yeah.
And that's what I always try to say a bit to my clients, like, just feel, just try to feel, don't avoid, feel the emotion, feel the sadness, cry for hours. And afterwards you will realize that you're still okay, that you're still gonna pick up everything.
Yeah. That's part of you're still alive.
Yeah, you're still alive. Maybe it feels shit,
so weird,
but yeah.
Nobody wants to feel sad or disappointed or ashamed, but it's okay to feel that way. Like, what's the issue? There's no demonization of any emotion. Yeah,
That's so cliche, but then I think, like, if you don't know how to feel, or if you don't know how it feels to be maybe once sad or whatever, then you also can't make the difference between being sad and maybe being happy. So it's so important to feel these negative emotions.
Yeah. Most people replace the sadness with numbness.
Yeah.
Like, I feel sad. Okay, let's go on Instagram and scroll through some reels. And it's like, is this actually going to make you feel different, or does it just numb your emotions? Yeah. I think it builds this quality of, that trust in yourself. I can handle any emotion. I can handle sadness. I can handle shame. I can handle guilt. And I'm still going to be okay. I'm still going to be me, and I can handle the emotion. I think that's such a powerful quality to also learn, to be like, you can handle this, even if it is difficult, even if you feel like crap for a couple of minutes, hours, days, weeks, even, you can get through that. And I think that's a really good quality to develop. And it's
I think it's super important.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever use the same analogy, because I feel like almost every psychologist uses the same analogies or like the same explanations for why we shouldn't suppress emotions, with the beach ball that you put underwater and then push them down too far. It just like plops up really strongly. It's like the psychologist.
But it's a good one.
It is. It really is. Yeah. It's this rebound effect of pushing away the emotion, because it's so funny, because we see that a lot where people seem fine, and then the most arbitrary thing happens and they just flip a switch and go crazy. And you're like, what's like maybe a good example. Somebody seems very well put together. They're always like very happy and smiley and go lucky. And then one day in the gym, they start like shaking their pre-workout and they forget to put on the lid properly. And a little bit of pre-workout comes out and they go like, ah, and start swearing up a storm and go like,
Exploding.
such an idiot. Why didn't I just close this properly? And you go, hold on. This was nothing. You just spilled a little bit. Who cares? This is fine. Just clean it up. But they just held the emotion in so long that they just like explode out of nowhere. So that's, I think, a good indication to be like, if you explode out of nowhere and you're like, I don't know why this was not appropriate to react this way, likely you're suppressing the emotions quite a bit. Yeah.
And then you also just realize that how important it is just for every kind of topic in your life or domain in your life. Like, it's important to learn this for private reasons, but also for if you are at work or whatever situation you are. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the most important things to be able to cope with your emotions, to deal with it, but also to feel them. I cannot, I still have clients that I've tried to learn how to feel. And for me, it's sometimes just like I try to understand. Of course, you always, as a psychologist or whatever, you always try to be, to have empathy and to try to understand how the other one feels. But I cannot imagine that I can't feel negative emotions, because I'm, in the past as a teenager, I was not good at it, but I just, at one point, I don't know when or where, but I just realized that it was just super, super important to let them go.
Yeah.
Because I just, as you said, I think I suppressed them always a bit.
Yeah.
And then if I was at a funeral, for example, for my grandma, I was crying like insanely, like it didn't stop. And then I just also realized more and more, like, okay, but the how do I say, the excessive crying was because I always suppressed my emotions. So I really, when I became older, then I learned just to feel and how important it is to have these negative feelings. And if I feel sad, that I just think like, okay, I feel sad, it's fine. I just allow myself to feel sad. Then I feel a bit sorry for myself. I go sitting on a bank with a blanket and an extra snack, and okay, I'm sad. I'm allowed to be sad. And then you also see how fast people just watch for a second.
Yeah.
How fast it's passing by because you allow yourself to feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm
It
really
goes
ranting
by
now,
fast.
but
No, this is a good rant. I really liked it. I identify a lot with it. Like when I was the typical like angry teenager when I was growing up, where if I felt sad, I was like, sadness cannot exist. Anger is the only thing. So I would just pivot my sadness into anger. So I would not like suppress all negative emotion, but I would suppress everything except one, and that's anger. And for me, it's the same now as an adult, that at times I'm like, oh, I feel angry. And I go, no, I don't. I feel sad. And then I just kind of like restructure what I'm actually feeling. And then I let that emotion happen. And it helps a lot, even though it's still difficult, because like from a man's perspective, it's told to you, don't cry, don't be this, that, and the other. But it just goes by so much faster, and the people around you like you a lot more because you're not angry all the time. So that helps a lot. And yeah, just sitting with that feeling of this is also allowed to be there. But unfortunately, a lot of people, you probably have that as well with your clients, they have so many means to not feel. Like there are a lot of people who started out going to the gym, for instance, because they're like, I feel angry and sad and disappointed and ashamed and guilt. And like they feel all of this. They go to the gym and they go, I don't feel something for a little bit because I'm working out or I'm working towards something better. I don't have to feel ashamed of how I look because I worked out today. So they find something to replace it with, or like the typical angry teenager as I was. Oh, I'm going to go and get absolutely drunk instead.
Yeah. I was just now a bit triggered when you said about the gym, because I was thinking, sorry, I was thinking about the phrase, gym is my therapy. I hate it.
Yeah.
I get where it's coming from,
Yeah.
but if people say gym is my therapy, as in literally it's my therapy to deal with emotions, with coping
Yeah.
with my problems, then I think, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Gym is not your therapy.
No. No.
Please.
No.
No. If you listen and you think gym is your therapy, go to real therapy.
Yeah. Oh my. Honestly,
Yeah.
also because it's so much, for a lot of people, so much tougher than doing a really tough workout is to go
Of
to
course.
therapy. It's
Yeah.
I had that conversation with somebody who also was like, in the past, he was like, oh, I don't need therapy. I'm just going to go to the gym, you know? He was very much like that. And then he started studying psychology and became a psychologist. And he was like, oh, I was so wrong. So he went to therapy and now he's like, oh, 3 sessions of EMDR or schema therapy is harder than any workout I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah.
But the payoff is just so nice. I think for most people, the gym is a great, amazing place to learn more about
For sure.
themselves,
For
get a little bit of a moment of letting things out, let frustrations out. But if it's not followed up with any sort of self-insight and working on these kind of things, it's kind of like a wasted potential because it opens up so much. But if there's nothing that's done with it, that's always very unfortunate. So
Yeah.
the gym is my therapy crowd is still quite loud.
Yeah. I sounded maybe like a bitch, but as you said, it's true what you say. Like, I think if I also look at myself, if I go to the gym, like if I sometimes have a bad day and maybe I'm in the mood and I think I'm not even in the mood to train, but I know like if I go to the gym, I will feel better because of the movements, because of the people that are there, that I have some conversations again. So then, of course, gym can do, or let's say not gym, sports can do a lot.
Yeah.
It can mean a lot, but it's not the way to deal with problems, your own mental health problems, with emotions, with whatever. That's, if you want to grow in that, then you need to go to real therapy and not the gym.
Yeah, you can't use it as a tool to suppress emotions.
Yeah.
If it's an opportunity to release some of them or maybe like open up certain emotions, that's really beautiful and I really like that. And again, you said when you have not so good of a day, for you it's like a, hey, I'm going to the gym and there's like a value that's attached to it. Connection, like I'm connecting with friends and I will get some movement. There's like an element of self-care and competence. I get better at what I do. So there are a lot of like values that are attached to it. So for you, it's like a way of, I'm going to give myself a little boost so I don't feel so crappy today.
Exactly.
And that is really important. But yeah, for some people that goes all the way into the back at one point. For them, there's no value attached to it other than I need to get my anger out. I need to get and that's not always the best approach to that whole thing. I have to say, for me personally, progression from early 20s until now early 30s, I've gone through like a crazy switch with that as well. In my early 20s, I was the guy who was like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to let out all my anger and violence and like that kind of stuff. I was a loose cannon in my early 20s. I think most people, if they would have met me, they would have been like, really, that was you? That's insane. Because now I'm a very like even-tempered,
I cannot imagine
kind of person. Yeah, I was a lunatic. But the progression to go through that and then later on noticing, oh, this is what I was doing, and then restructuring that fully to nowadays going, hey, I'm going to skip the gym today because I don't feel healthy physically or I don't feel in a mentally good space to do it. And then other days where I say, I'm going to go to the gym. And before I leave, I ask myself, wait, hold on. Am I doing this because this morning I was thinking, you look a little chunky today? Or am I doing this because I think, oh, this will be good for me because I love moving, getting the juices flowing and da. So I do take pause at times and be like,
very good.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are either in that process where they're not aware of why they're doing things or they start to become more aware. and they're not yet at the shifting stage. And at any stage where you're at, that's also okay. I hope we shifted you into the awareness stage now. But it's also okay to be at those stages and go like, hey, I'm aware that I'm going to the gym to punish myself today. If you're aware and you still do it, not always the best, but at least you know it. At least you know that that is what you were doing. And that is a golden opportunity for anyone to just go, hold on, I don't have to. It's just pivot slightly. What is a value that I can fulfill with this gym session besides punishing myself for a bad day or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. The awareness is the first step, actually. It's the biggest step, maybe, to change.
Yeah. The amount of times where this is, I don't know if you have that, but I work with a lot of really clever people. Sometimes I have clients where I'm like, well, I'm like, you guys are so smart, you're so intelligent, it's wild. But they're so good at, even though they are aware, they have awareness, they're so good at like rationalizing around and making these rounds around their own mind. And then when they talk to you, they also like dance a little rounds around you. And you're like, oh, I think you're rationalizing, but they're so clever, they get away with it. And that's something that I find really fascinating when I work with people that are more clever, that they're able to be so self-aware, but somehow still can twist reality in a way where you're like, oh, you're getting away with it. Yeah. They're like, no, I'm not weighing myself now because I think I gained weight and I think that I'm a terrible person if I weigh more. No, I just want to have confirmation that maybe what I did yesterday had an impact. So it's more of a scientific pursuit. And you're like, come on, be honest. So it's a really interesting subject. I don't know if you have experience with that at all, where you have like clients that are great at twisting the fabric of reality a little bit too much.
I find this most of the time actually the most difficult. Also the most fun, maybe, because it's for you as a psychologist or whatever, it's more challenging. So then you are in a conversation that you really think like, okay, I really need to now think extra. What do I say? How do I confront someone? So it's really challenging, but it's I find it also quite difficult because at one point you also think like, hey, but now it's also your responsibility to be honest to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult to convince someone that it's time to be honest, instead of just the whole time, how do you say, walking around and then saying the truth.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting takeaway maybe for some people to also question, do I have like multiple strands of consciousness, so to say, that are interacting with each other, and one of them is my part of me that wants to avoid and therefore just rationalizes the ever living hell of everything. Or do I follow the more emotional part of me, or somewhere in between, to kind of like be more attentive to how that voice that is active in that moment sounds like? If it is a very rational voice, or if it's a voice that is more emotional, or one that is overly rational, that starts, taking charge and being like, no, I did not do this because of a really bad thing that I think, but actually because of something really great that I came up with really quickly. So maybe that's a good takeaway here.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think we can talk for ages, but I think it's maybe a good time to now close the topics in the podcast again.
Yeah.
Because we're already, I don't know what time we started, around 11:15, I think so.
Yeah.
1.5 hours, we're good.
Yeah. So like you said, we could talk forever, but I think the main three topics kind of became quite clear in this conversation. I think we covered them really, really nicely, to be honest.
I think so too. I find it's very, me too. I find it very interesting. And also, I have to say, some topics or approaches that was for me also very interesting, that I look now also a bit different in it. Especially the one where you said that, I think now it's still in my head, the one where you said as a team responsibility.
Yeah.
that the last one is the one who's responsible. No, it's the whole team that before maybe could also already change something. It's logic, but you just have to sometimes maybe to wake up and just realize, oh yeah, this is another approach how you can see it, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the conversation. I hope people were able to take away a little bit of something here and there, little nuggets of truth for themselves. Not everything will connect with everyone the same way. But I think that's the important thing, that we're sort of, I guess, telling the truth as it is, the way we can as psychologists, and not shy away from also have these conversations that are a little bit more confrontational. Because I said a few things where I'm like, some people will be really upset about hearing them, and others will be like, right, and really much agree with them. And I think that's important. So I think it's great that you had me back on, and I'm really excited to see what the response will be, if there's going to be some
me too.
hate mail towards my. No, joking.
I don't like this Patrick.
He confronts me too much. I hate him. Or maybe I get some love letters in the mail. I don't know what's going to happen.
Nice.
Yeah. Who
I don't know
knows?
if your wife or if your girlfriend likes it, but yeah.
No. She will not. She will not like it at all. But either way, whatever it is, I think this was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you said, I think it's sometimes good to also just be honest and to just say how it is. And I think what people have to, or what I want to tell then the listeners, if you feel maybe like a bit attacked or hurt, that's not what we want to do. I think it's more like a sign for you that maybe you have to work on something. And that's totally fine, because we are all human beings that still have to work on a lot. But I think, as we said before, awareness is the first step. So if you are now aware, like, hey, this triggered me a lot, and it's something that is just keeps spinning in my head, and that I feel quite touched by it, then yeah, it's maybe a sign for you to start working on things and go for a change. And I am open up to it to help you, but if it's more sports related, then I would recommend to go text Patrick.
Yeah.
He can probably help you further with these more specialized topics.
Absolutely. I want to say one thing regarding that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an elite level athlete to do this, by the way.
No.
You can even be a relative beginner. The best thing you can do if you want to develop as a person in general, but also as an athlete, is to start when you see the signs popping up. Yeah. Because when you lay that foundation early, you're going to be in such a better position than almost everybody else. Because the most annoying thing you can do as an athlete or as a person is going through life for such a long time, have done things in a certain way for such a long time, and then getting stuck and noticing, damn it, now I have to work on all of these things that happen over years and years and years that I've repeated over and over and over. It's so rewarding to find, like, hey, this is something that is an issue here. Let's resolve this as it comes up, and be quite early in your career. And then you can just go your entire career with a solid foundation that is unshakable. And I guarantee you, it's so much more rewarding, and you will have such a head start amongst so many people. So if you're more beginner, intermediate, doesn't matter. I'm not only working with like the high level, I'm working with anyone, and I value every athlete and person the same. I don't care if you are beginner, intermediate, the most advanced. I don't care. I couldn't care less. The thing I care about is that you can make some progress in that journey and become better as a athlete and as a person. That's the only thing I care. So if you want to, always feel free to reach out. You can always schedule a free consultation with me as well, that I do for free, by the way. So
let's go, guys, immediately.
I was about to say, I mean, this is the deal of the century. So even if you just talk for an hour with me and at the end you say, hey, no, it's not a good fit, or hey, I want to do this by myself, no harm, no foul, all good. But if you want to, there you will probably link something in a bio, then they can just
for sure.
look that up.
Sure. Okay, it's a very beautiful words to end with. So I would like to say thank you again. I really enjoyed the conversation. I had a lot of fun, and I think, but yeah, we are always biased, but I think it was very valuable again, and I think people can get a lot out of it, but we will see what the feedback is. But thank you for being here and make the time again. I really, really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. See you next time, maybe.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.